It's every camper's worst nightmare. We were out on the road camping and we had a water leak. That's right, there was water all over the floor of the camper and I didn't know where it was coming from. The water had been pooling up for a little while. I wasn't sure. We thought maybe it was splashing at the toilet, but you can see this little bit of water under the wall there. It definitely wasn't coming from the toilet because it was dry behind the toilet on both sides. There's water on the seal there. Those of you who watched my previous video on making the dinette know I moved the water pump on top of the water heater so I'd have more room. And when I did that, this connection here was leaking, so I had to replace it with a like a shark bite connection. It's not shark bite, but like that. It's just a brass fitting, and I used a compression clamp to put the hose on. So when I got this water here, I thought maybe it's coming from one of these connections in the water heater. So I put paper towels on here and on the connections to the water heater, to where the next time it leaked, I would be able to see if the paper towels were wet. Well, it's leaking now, and both these paper towels I put on the water heater connections are dry, and there's no water dripping down below here. But when I open this cabinet here, there was a ton of water here, and you can see this wood here is all wet. So I'm pretty sure I know the water is coming from the pump, the water filter outside, and because the water filter bay is right behind here, it's dripping through here, coming through under this wall, which of course is not fixed to the floor much, and then filling this whole area and getting onto the floor around here. So I think I've solved the mystery and I know where the water's coming from. Now it's just a matter of fixing it. So I came out here and I found out that there was water all leaking down this line, probably coming from this joint. Water all down this line, and it was pooling the floor here and then leaking on the floor here and then leaking in to the camper on the wall, really between the bathroom and the desk area, and that's where the water was coming from. So I'm going to take this filter out because I don't need it. I have an inline filter, and people have said to me for a long time, I've read on forums and that these things always leak. It's not a matter of if they're going to leak, it's just a matter of when. So people take them out. I didn't take it out. I guess I paid the price now, so I'm on the road and I got to take it out. So first thing I'm going to do is take the wrench that they give you. I've never changed this filter before. So I'm going to take the wrench they give me and just back it out counterclockwise. Let's see. I've heard people say it's hard to turn this, but I guess it depends on your particular filter, how that works. That wasn't too bad. Mine came off pretty good. I'm just going to unscrew it and take it out with the water in it. Hopefully not spill it. Now the filter's out and I've dried up the water that flowed out from it. I'm going to have to remove these screws up here. Now these screws are square head, and it seems like I've noticed that a lot of the screws in this camper are square head. So whenever I travel in my tool bag, I always keep a square head screwdriver. So I just need to unscrew these. Okay, I unscrewed the 4 screws, 3 screws I should say. That's pretty easy. Now this thing's here. I'm going to try to take these clamps off. So hopefully I brought something with me to get these press things off. I have a pair of pliers. We'll see if we can get them off with that. One of the tools I take with me whenever I camp is a pair of diagonal cutters. You never know when you need them. And now I do. So I took the diagonal cutters and I just cut the press clamp there off. And now I should be able to use my other pliers I bring, needle nose, and take that band off. So I took the press clamp off with the needle nose pliers. Now the hose should be able to just be pulled off the clamp. Let me get that out. Oh, there's some water in there still too, even though I turned the water off and tried to drain it at the campsite. I'm just going to do the same thing to the clamp on the other side and get that one off. Okay, I managed to loosen this press clamp, and then I could get the other compression fitting off that. I won't lie, it was hard to get this clamp cut because you had to reach back in there pretty good and fight with it. It was a lot easier on the one on this side, but I managed to break it and then loosen it up to get it off. So now we have the hoses I'm going to try to connect together, and I can stick it back in there, and the water system will work again without the filter. So what I've done is I went to the hardware store. So you need to go to a hardware store. You need to be somewhere where you can get to a hardware store to do this. So I bought a 3/4 inch hose barb to fit down those pipes, and then 2 regular screw clamps, so I can put those on without the toolkit, just with a screwdriver, and clamp it down. So I'm going to put them on. So those are available at a lot of different hardware stores. You got Ace or True Value or Lowe's or Home Depot. They should have them. Just a nylon hose barb, and this is 3/8 inch, actually 3/8 inches. So that's what I think you need for this kind. So I'm going to put the hose clamp on the hose, and put one on this hose, so they're ready. I'm going to take the barb, stick it down the pipes. Now you'll notice that this 3/8 inch fits pretty well in this hose, but these PVC hoses here, it's actually a bit loose for, so I'm not sure if you can get one that's an adapter to maybe 1/2 inch. I didn't get that, but I think I'm going to be able to tighten those clamps down enough to hold it in. So I'll put the clamp, put the screw clamp there, and then I'm going to tighten it down and see if it holds on. Okay, I got the 2 things screwed down. Now one thing is I cannot get this tight enough with a screwdriver. But fortunately I always take a little ratchet set on the road too. And so I stack that ratchet on there and I can really crank it down. And hopefully that's tight enough now to stop the water from leaking. So I'm going to go ahead and hook the hose and run the pressure back in and see what happens. As you can see, unfortunately it's leaking, so I'm going to tighten it down even more and see if I can stop the leak. Okay, that didn't work. So there's a good tip for you. Don't do it that way. I tried screwing down the screw clamp, and I screwed it so hard that it actually stripped the gear on the screw clamp, and it was still leaking. So I took it off, and with all the water that was spraying out, there was a ton of water getting into the camper. So safety tip, if you plan on doing this, make sure you put a towel down first. I should have done that. And what had happened is that this dividing wall got so wet that when I went to move it, it actually ripped the nails out, which I didn't really like this dividing wall anyways. I have a little more room in here. I guess it's there to just prevent you from putting anything on those electrical cables and nicking them or cutting them. But I don't put anything sharp in here, so it should be fine. I have an easier access storage bay, but it's also easier to get at this clamp. So what I did now is this little plastic connector, which is actually the wrong size. It doesn't match this one's inside diameter. I took it off, and then so I cut the clamp off that one too. This clamp up here on top, and then I took these hose off. And now what I'm going to do is just connect this hose right to there. Now we need one clamp, and hopefully that clamp and that wider diameter and softness should be able to clamp down hard enough with the screw that I can prevent any leaks. So I probably should have done this the first thing instead of using that little clamp, but I will tell you it was a kind of a pain in the ass to get this piece off. That's one of the reasons why this divider wall broke off, because I was kept pushing against it so much and it fell out with the wet wood. We probably should have done this to begin with and taken that little blue hose off and just connected right to here. So that's what I'm going to do now. Push this down and then put the screw clamp on. Alright, so I clamped that down, tighten the screw down, and now for the moment 2, and of course I have the towel down below it now in case it leaks. So we'll turn on the water and see what happens. Okay, the water's on. We're getting pretty good pressure in the camper. But as I can tell with the paper towel, there's no leaks. So that seemed to work. The good news is if you have to do this on the road, you don't have to buy 2 screw clamps, you don't have to buy this barb connector. All you need to do is take the hose off and stick it on that T-connector once you remove the water filter. And so it's only one thing you have to have. In fact, you might even carry one of the little screw clamps with you in case you have to do this, and then you won't have to go to the hardware store at all. You can just fix it right on site. If I had to do this again, I probably would bring something sharper and better to cut those clamps off, because it was a bit of a trouble to get those off, especially the ones farther back. So it's not leaking, and I think that should be good for going home. And when I get home, I might do something different. I'm not sure. At least I might just put a mount up here so that thing stays out of the way. But I think that's good enough for the rest of our trip, because I don't think it's going to leak any water. But I might leave a towel down here just in case it does. But you know, every time I turn on the water at the campsite, at a new campsite, after driving, I will, you know, obviously come back here and check to make sure it's still waterproof until we get home. So that's how you can fix a leaky hose filter in your 19FD or whatever GeoPro that you have, or ePro, that has that filter if it starts leaking, which now I kind of agree with people say that they will eventually leak. I don't think they're the world's greatest fittings, and as I said, I think it's kind of redundant to have two filters. Okay, I'm back home. The fitting survived 2,000 miles back home without any leaks, so I think it's permanent. And this is the final change I did. You can see I strapped that hose up against the upper wall so that it doesn't move, and I moved that wall back against the electrical connections there so we don't have to worry about hitting them, but it does give it a wider bay. So no hose filter anymore and a bigger bay, and I'm happy with the change. I think I'll keep it that way. If you like this video, subscribe to the channel and you'll be notified when we put a new video out. Thanks for watching.